Hello everyone and welcome to this Fireside chat hosted by me, Carl Bokvist, on behalf of ABG. With us today we have the pleasure of hosting the CEO of CTT Systems, Henrik Höjer. Thank you for being here, Henrik.
Thanks for inviting me, Carl.
So I thought, first of all, we're going to talk a little bit both about what's happening in the near term and also a bit further out. But if you could start with providing just perhaps a short brief of why investors should be interested in looking at CTT.
Sure. Now I think it's a very interesting time to be in, and we actually have the strongest market outlook in several years, and that comes then from a huge demand of flying, and especially wide-body long-haul aircraft. And right now Airbus and Boeing is trying to ramp up their production, which will mean that they will be 2 to 3 times today's levels in a couple of years, and of course we will benefit from that ramp up. So I think that's really exciting. On top of that, we think we can grow our installed base even more with adding more humidifiers on each aircraft, and we're working quite hard on that opportunity as well. So good potential for growth in the next coming years, and we see that we had huge success in the past on flight deck and crew rest. We see that the interest for having cabin humidification is increasing, and with a few airlines coming out with their new products in 25 and 26, we think that will change the market dynamics. Then of course we also have opportunities in large cabin business jets, which we are working quite hard on right now. And on top of that, finally the anti-condensation market came back beginning of this year with a great order from Jet2.com, and I hope that will show that there is a market for our anti-condensation system and that more airlines will follow.
And so as CEO of the company, what would you say are the key items on your agenda right now as we are in the first quarter of 2025?
I think the first thing is sales, and the second thing is sales, and the third thing is sales. But on top of my mind, it's supporting our sales team to make as many airlines select humidification systems and anti-condensation systems. I think that's the key objective all the time. Then of course we work very hard with securing our aftermarket, making sure that our customers that have our system on board continue to buy OEM products from CTT. That's also a very important topic. And then of course maybe third, and preparing our organization for the ramp up that is coming. I mean, we talk about both Airbus and Boeing going from 5 to 10 aircraft next year. That's double their production, and of course that hopefully means double the production for CTT, and we need to be prepared for that.
And we recently wrapped up 2024, and in that, in connection to the fourth quarter, you also talked about that the OEMs are now actually starting to show signs of ramping up production. On the other hand, the aftermarket business, which is over time something that grows with the installed base, now has a bit of an inventory correction, if you would put it in that way. So just how should one think about the perhaps longer development of the aftermarket business, and why you think this is perhaps more of a short-term isolated inventory correction?
So I mean, over time the aftermarket is always depending on system sales, and if we can increase system sales and the number of installed systems, we will of course increase the aftermarket potential over time. And that's why our top priority and part of our strategy is to grow the installed base, and that's again why do we focus so much on convincing more and more airlines to take more and more humidifier systems. So that's the only way for us to grow the aftermarket long term. Last year was a little bit disappointing on the OEM side because Airbus and Boeing did not manage to ramp up as they planned. The ramp up is coming this year instead. So the installed base grew somewhere between 5 and 10%, which is the increase of the aftermarket this year. But can we go to 10 aircraft per month for both of those suppliers in 26? Of course, then we see a growth of installed system with 20%, which then corresponds to the aftermarket. So I think we have really good opportunities in front of us. 24 being a little bit of transitory year, and now it's hopefully turning back up again.
And also now what you said in connection to the Q4 report was that we should start to expect higher system sales from you. So that is actually systems to the OEMs. And with Boeing and Airbus now being at perhaps 4 or 5, so to say, and you say they target 10 and perhaps even 12 further out. So what is currently the lead time between an aircraft manufacturer ramping up its own manufacturing capacity and how quickly that results in increased system sales for CTT?
Starting with just going back a little bit, I mean, in 24, both Airbus and Boeing did corrections of their stock levels, which of course affected our OEM deliveries. We will see a jump now in Q1 when both of them actually order things. We deliver according to their build rate, so to say, without any corrections. So there will be a jump in Q1. And then we're backtracking the actual build rate in our deliveries. Then both of them to reach 10 next year will increase their production during this year. And of course, I would say like roughly 3 to 4 months before they ramp up, they need to ramp up their orders from us as well. So it's quite linked actually, no big delays, but we are a little bit ahead of their curve, so to say.
And then when we talk about your two products, there is the humidification of the interior of the aircraft and also removing the humidity. And now in recent years, it's been mainly about humidifying the air. And then we talked about the spaces in the aircraft for the crew. And now increasingly so, there is the potential of actually providing humidified air for the passengers. And when we think about the aircraft models where you're present today, the potential there is mainly on the Airbus 350 because you already have a strong penetration on the 787 where we don't have passengers humidifiers today. So apart just from production rates, how do you see the potential in terms of improving penetration, both on the 350 and also possibly if it could be possible to actually sell humidifiers on the 787, for example?
I mean, so we start with new A350s. There we have a huge potential actually, and we talked about the history in previous talks, and humidification was not selected that much on A350 in the beginning, but right now I think we have been on an average on less than 1 humidifier per year. We will see already next year that we will have more than 2 per A350 delivered. And of course 2 is not a lot because on a Dash 1000 you can have up to 6. And if we want to go to 6, we need them to continue to select for the flight deck, for the pilot, improve a little bit more on crew rest, which is becoming more and more popular, but there's still a potential. And then of course we need to move into the passenger cabin where today there's only 3 airlines operating with it. We know that another 2 to 3 will enter the market 25, 26 time frame. And then, of course, we hope that this will start some kind of market dynamics. Then on the other part of your question is, could we do something on the 787 as well? And of course, these aircraft are in the right age for doing retrofits now and cabin upgrades. Boeing is actually launching programs like that, and we have discussions with a few airlines that are interested, and we are also talking with some of the potential suppliers of these upgrades. So I think that dynamic will happen, and I mean, then we talk about 1,000 delivered aircraft that could be a potential for retrofitting the cabin humidification. But right now, I would say the biggest opportunities are actually A350, which is also closing into 8 years operational time, where it's time to start doing upgrades. And in a couple of years, there will be like 400 A350s, which are in that time for upgrades. And we have now agreed with Airbus that we are part of that upgrade package. So we're a page in the option catalog, so to say, which I think means a lot because then Airbus will actually present our offering to the airline. And then we don't only talk about cabin because the first aircraft, they didn't have flight deck and crew rest. So, I mean, we are targeting flight deck, crew rest and cabin retrofits on the A350.
So then when we have the system sales on this aircraft, and you now mentioned the retrofit opportunity. And on the retrofit, you recently secured a sizable order on anti-condensation, so removing humidity and within the smaller planes for short haul or narrow body. So why do you think this happened now? You've been talking about it for quite some time to enter this market. So one, why did it happen now? And two, what could we see going forward from a potentially other customers?
I think there's a number of factors that have held this back, and one started with the pandemic. Then of course we saw the airlines coming back, and demand for flying was huge, but the airlines, they actually didn't have any cash because of the pandemic. They have also scarce resources, both on number of aircraft, number of crew, and also maintenance people. So I think these things held the demand back. And now we're into a more stable situation where actually a lot of the customers are back to normal and making the normal amounts of money, and they also have access to MRO capacity. So I think the timing, it took longer than I anticipated, but I think the timing is right, and that's why it happened now. Then this particular customer, they had it on their 737s, now they get the A321s, and they want to have the same systems on there. So I mean, they're convinced, but I think there's a market dynamic that is actually happening now. And as we said, we have 350 more outstanding offers, and hopefully can convert them to sales as well in the near future.
And the 350, they should be seen in relation to the order, which was around 150 now, for reference. So, but then switching topic, now when right now there's a lot of talk about potential tariffs between different regions and countries. Could you just, if possible, briefly give us a bit of an explanation into the trade flows for CTT and perhaps how you handled the tariffs that were launched well before the pandemic?
No, but I mean, it's a very integrated supply chain system, and I mean, Airbus is buying things from US companies to build their aircraft. Boeing is of course buying things from European countries. We are one example, and this flow is going back and forth. So it's a very integrated system, and we, and amongst other also companies in this business, we actually think that this hopefully protects our business, but we cannot be sure about that right now. The other thing that is also one thing to think about is that the cycles are very long, and it's extremely hard to change from one supplier to another. Then you need to requalify your aircraft, and I mean, we are the sole supplier of this system for both Boeing and Airbus. So I think we're looking positively at our business and this scenario, but today we cannot be sure at all what will happen.
And when we think about then another part of your system offering, that is towards private jets. So private jets, business jets, VIP. This is now something where you've lately stepped up your efforts even further. You've talked about Bombardier being one customer. So what is currently happening in that segment?
I think if we just recap a little bit, we've been very successful on the really big private jets with good penetration. We further strengthened that with a cooperation with Airbus Corporate Jet, and now we have kit system, which is actually part of their catalog, so Airbus is selling them. Started with the 320 family, then we added the 220 family, and now we added the 330 family as well. So that cooperation is very good, and after we added this, I mean, we had more or less 100% hit rate, so that is growing our market. But to expand even more, I think we need to step down to a little bit smaller aircraft where the production volumes are bigger, and that's why we are really targeting now to try to finalize a contract with Bombardier on their 7500-8000 model. And if we can do that, I'm pretty sure we can also approach Gulfstream and a few others. And then we're talking about 100 aircraft per year, and that would be a 30 million US dollar possibility for CTT, and to grow the private jet, I mean, we really need to make this system available at the OEMs.
And well, you do not disclose differences in profitability and so on, but when we think about you selling a system to a VIP private jet aircraft, it tends to include both a anti-condensation part and a humidification part. I seem to believe that, for example, in one of the orders you've announced, you talked about potentially 1 or 2 dryers and 4 humidifiers. So when you think about selling to a private jet, could we still say that perhaps the value that you sell per system is higher than you would sell on a commercial aircraft, for example?
I can agree to that, and I mean it's especially on the big ones, margins are good. If we go down in size, I would say that there is in general a bigger pressure on price, but it should still be very good business.
So then just staying a little bit on something you have talked about in your reports too, that as we now head into a situation where production is ramping up and you expect to see a step up in system sales, what you've talked about is that you are now a company running at well above 30% operating margins, and there could be a mix impact as the share of system sales increase. But then, of course, the share of system sales will drive volumes and you get benefit on that. So you do not have a financial target, but how should one think about the group's profitability over the coming years as the share of system sales increase?
I mean, we want to be a growth company, but we also want to be a profitable growth company. And of course, the mix will change the dynamics a little bit. But I usually refer back to the pre-pandemic levels where OEM sales were a lot bigger part of our total sales. And we managed to make very healthy profits in 2018, 2019 as examples. And that's clearly our target to stay on those levels. And to do that, of course, we need to ramp up our production and be more efficient, and that is things that we are looking at. We should be able to scale up in a good way and without adding extra cost, more than maybe more people, of course, we need, because it's very people intense. Even trying to automate as much as possible. And then, of course, more system sales will grow the aftermarket where we have a little bit better profitability. So I think our chances of staying a high margin company is pretty good.
And that leads us a little bit into capital allocation. So right now, CTT is a company with a net cash balance sheet, and you pay out a large share of your annual profits in dividends. And you are, based on what we can see at least, the growth potential doesn't point to 3% growth. It points to something higher than that. So when it comes to investments, are there any sizable investments that we should consider, given that your financial position is well, very, very solid?
I mean, we will continue to grow organically. That's our strategy right now, and we think that, as you said, the potential is great. We are also a company which have a history of giving our shareholders part of the profit, and that's our plan to continue that. As we grow, we will have to invest a little bit. We are in the planning phase of expanding our facility down outside Kalmar in Nybro. We are also, as I talked about, looking at ways of optimizing our production, making it even more efficient. So yes, we will need to invest some, but we already expanded that plan one time before. First we built it, then we built a second ship, and now we're talking about building a third ship. So I think the investments are in line with what you have seen before in CTT's history.
And then the final one is that you've now been the CEO since 2022. So there's been both some ups and downs in this market, I should say. But what have been some highlights of your career so far?
I mean, a few times I had the opportunity to meet airline people, which then have told us that they have selected our system in their aircraft, and especially when they have selected cabin humidification. I mean, that's clearly highlights, I would say. Another one is actually that the success of the ACJ cooperation, where it started a little bit. I mean, you didn't know if it's going to be a success or not, but then with time has proven it, and adding now up to 3 models and seeing that they're really selling our system in a good way is still a highlight in it, and hopefully it leads into the next step with more OEMs than one. And then maybe it's not super important, but still for me that we finally got power into the anti-condensation market again just happened. So I'm still happy about it, and I really hope we can use that momentum to secure more sales and help the airline save weight and cost and thereby CO2 emissions.
With that, thank you very much, Henrik, for being here. Thank you all of you who have watched and listened.
Thank you.